next up, what do we have? Believe it or not, everyone, it has been 10 years. It's been
10 years since you dropped
What has it been? It has been 10 years since the release of the second Avengers movie, Age of Ultron. Now, for those of you who might have been at the San Diego Comic-Con watching the announcements, watching the Marvel panel, I was in Hall H, and I was crossing my fingers because the rumors had been flying that the next Avengers movie 2, was going to be the Age of Ultron, and I lost my mind when they showed the logo and they told us all that it was the Age of Ultron. And I'll tell you something that's really, I don't know, John, if you feel this way, but when I went and saw Age of Ultron, I wouldn't say I was disappointed, but I thought it wasn't quite as good as the first Avengers movie. But strangely enough, as the years have gone by, as this past decade has gone by, I have found myself returning to Age of Ultron more and more, and to me it's become not only more relevant to the MCU as a whole, I find myself enjoying Age of Ultron more. You know, we have the introduction of Vision, who is great. There's the great dinner party scene in Avengers Tower where everyone's trying to pick up Mjolnir, and Steve Rogers makes it move a little bit, right. And Thor's like taken aback.
Yeah, he kind of has that I knew it.
You know, the idea of Tony Stark building a suit of armor around the world, which I think will come into play in Doomsday. I don't know for sure, and then of course Ultron himself, voiced by one of my favorite actors, James Spader. I've been a fan of his all the way back into the 80s when he played like Dutra in Sean Cunningham's The New Kids. And then, of course, Rip, the drug-dealing evil villain in Less Than Zero. And then, of course, Pretty in Pink and Jack Spack and Tough Turf. John, what are your memories of seeing Avengers Age of Ultron for the first time?
You know, Avengers Age of Ultron is one of the... First of all, are you kidding me? 10 years?
Dude.
Yeah.
10 years?
10 years, age of all of us.
Today, I first of all, that's a little kind. I still remember exactly where I was. I still remember exactly who I was with. I think it's one of those movies that more and more time that goes on, number one, I appreciate the film more and more. And we talk about that all the time, Rob, that like every once in a while we'll bring up Age of Ultron. It's like, you know what? I saw it again a few months ago. And again, I liked it more than I even remembered. But it's also become more and more relevant to the MCU because you were pointing out, I think some big things kind of got introduced there. First of all, this whole notion of Tony Stark and going to build a suit of armor around the world. That became more and more relevant to the character as they move forward.
Yep.
And we haven't even, I think you're right, I don't think we've even really gotten to the real payoff of that yet till we get into Doomsday and things like that. But also it brought up the idea, it was really Age of Ultron that brought up the idea of when you have this much power, there are going to be moral dilemmas. And of course we got that a lot in Civil War, but even right in Age of Ultron, like there became this idea of this moral dilemma of I want to build a suit of armor around the world, but at what price? How far are you willing to go? What risks are you willing to take when something like Ultron could be the result? And one of my all-time favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe scenes, easily a top 3. I bring this one up all the time, but is this magnificent scene at the celebration party at Stark Tower as Black Widow, Natasha, and Bruce are talking.
Oh, yeah.
We find out there's been a simmering romance, maybe like feelings developing. And she tells, again, I'm not getting the exact wording right, but the whole question is kind of raised. What would a Black Widow see in a nerd like Bruce? And she gives this line that's almost on par of what is grief if not love persevering, when she says, you have met all these guys who are ready to run into the fight. And then I meet this one guy who runs away from the fight because he knows he'll win. And that line has always stuck with me. Like that line just is such brilliant writing. It's such it was timed perfectly. It was performed perfectly. So yeah, again, I think it's one of those movies that has the double hit of being better and better the more I see it. But as the MCU itself progresses, it as a movie becomes more and more important and relevant to the MCU as a whole. And yeah, I think it's look, it's kind of looked at as the ugly stepchild of the Avengers franchise in many ways. But I think that's unfair and unfounded because again, look, I don't think it's as good as the first Avengers. I don't think it's as good as Avengers Endgame, but it's a worthy Avengers film, and I think more relevant than we remember.
Well, also, it does introduce the miracles of Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. Mm-hmm. We do have the climax in Sokovia that echoed throughout the MCU after that, even into Brave New World, and I'm sure beyond. And again, introducing Scarlet Witch and Vision and Quicksilver, even though Quicksilver dies. But I mean, Vision to me has one of the great MCU costumes. I know he's White Vision now, but when he shows up, Paul Bettany moving Jarvis over into a starring role and turning him into Vision and making that character so noble. And one of my favorite scenes in the MCU happens at the very end, spoiler alert, of Age of Ultron, when Vision confronts Ultron and gives the line, "Well, I was born yesterday."
Yeah.
It's one of those great moments. And I think, it has that great opening scene where that one shot when they all go into battle together. Mm-hmm. I think after 10 years, Age of Ultron has really grown in its respectability, and it's a worthy effort. And I think, John, when you watch all four, and a lot of people are going to be watching all four Avengers movies back to back, leading up into Doomsday, I think people are going to find that the movie has held up quite well. What do you guys all think? What do you think about 10 years? Does that mean, I was a whole different person 10 years ago. And what do you think? Go down in the comments section and tell us your memories of seeing Avengers Age of Ultron, what you think of Age of Ultron. How has it aged?
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.